I made a mistake. Well, several. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest, the entire thing was one big mistake. As you read in the title, the shield and rolling are not allowed, meaning I can't block or parry. So my only form of dodging is that little shimmy that Kratos does. This video is gonna be a little bit different than usual. Instead of going over the entire 30-hour long game, I'm only gonna go over the bosses, because they are where the most concentrated areas of pain are. Alas, I'm not gonna go in chronological order, but instead by how long it took me to send them to the Shadow Realm. Place your bets below on who you think took me the longest, because it's probably not who you expect. Like, by a wide margin. The Huntress. So this fight started with me minding my own business, splitting people in half, as usual, when suddenly I'm interrupted. Ow! So, the fight started, and Horse Lady here, like most women, kept her distance from me. This boss was constantly running to the other side of the arena, shooting her little arrows. She was fighting like a total coward. Or I guess in this case, like a horseword. During the fight, Atreus repeatedly told me to hit her horns, so, just like everything else Boy says, I promptly took it into my brain, dragged it over to the recycle bin, and hit permanently delete. But after a death, I took his advice, and it turns out he was right in this case. It made the fight a lot easier. To be honest, I don't even know how this is a boss. Like, I don't know who this horse person is. They just showed up, spoke enchantment table, and then died. Grilla. In the second spot for weakest boss is Grandma Giantess Grilla. I know this looks bad. I didn't want to attack the elderly, but it was in self-defense. And I mean it this time. This fight wasn't too bad. It was just really slow. The only way of damaging her would be shooting her pot, and she would guard it like it was her newborn. Even when she wasn't, my aim is, well, comparative to trying to pee in the dark.
What are you aiming at? What are you aiming at?
This would have gone way faster if not for one slight hiccup. Sometimes my brain just skips a beat, and I do something stupid, like dodging all of Grilla's special magic attacks and constant kicking just to be stepped on like a misplaced Lego brick. Or jumping into her poison and my body instantly melting. Oh, I didn't mean to do this. This was one massive mistake. For most of the fight, a lot of her kicking, and the lava floor especially, was really easy to dodge, but the only thing that kinda sucked was the explosive projectiles, cause even if I preemptively shuffled out of the way, sometimes it just wasn't enough distance, and I'd still get hit. Let's go! Fisk. When I heard that Willy was in this game, I got hyped, but upon entering the arena, I didn't find my favorite bald crime lord. Instead, I just found this dude with a scythe, and he killed me so many times. It wasn't that there were projectiles or AoE attacks, he was just swinging around his scythe, often directly into my face. I had a hard time timing his attacks, and with no boy to use as human bait, I was all on my own. On top of that, we were fighting in a very confined space, meaning I couldn't rely on my special technique of running away like a coward. After dying a couple times, I realized that I was probably just underleveled. Yeah, it's never a skill issue, just blame it on the level. So I went back to do some side quests, but then I got bored after 2 minutes of walking back to the portal, so I just said screw it. I'ma fight him anyways. So I went back, and I guess I learned his moves well enough because I beat him on my first try. I gave my mans a free neck piercing, and we were done. The Ancients. There were like 3 of these guys, so I'm just gonna speedrun this. No cuts, got the script open, just start the timer. First fight is Frosty the Snowman. So easy, Thor clapped his frosty cheeks. Groot was a little bit trickier as I actually had to fight this time, and I kinda underestimated him. Again and again. The only problem was his damned laser, which was a slight problem because it would kinda set me on fire. It didn't help that these droggers kept on asking for a piggyback ride mid-fight. I honestly didn't learn any of these attacks. I eventually just got lucky and was able to tank through all of them. The Soul Eaters were the hardest by far, and I can tell you firsthand that their name is accurate. Thankfully, the laser is gone, but so is my soul. I threw myself at the big guys over and over until I realized that I can't just tank through it like last time. There are too many projectiles and I had no shield. So I had to go to my last resort. thinking. I realized that the Draugrs were actually what was messing me up, so I pulled a Mr. Clean and reduced the local Draugr population by 99.99%. And after that, it was pretty easy. Bam! Done! Woo! That's a world record! I mean, I'm the only one running this segment and I just made it up now, but that's a world record! The Phantoms. The next bosses are the magic rockworms. When I first saw this, I thought the visions had come back, but no, it turns out this is a real enemy. While this boss looks intimidating, their attacks were just so slow. It made the fight so easy. In fact, I started to feel a little bad for the poor guy. Okay, that move sucks, dude. You gotta take that one out. I'm just trying to help you out here. Like, next time you fight someone, don't do that one again. The only problem with the frostworm was that it took forever to kill. They would pop out of the ground, attack, then slither back in. It was so annoying, and basically the only reason that they're this high up on the list. I would also talk about the fireworm, but it was basically pretty much the same thing, except red this time. Heimdall. You know, for how much crap Heimdall talks, you think it would take more than 14 minutes to forcibly stop his breathing. The real enemy here wasn't the god who could literally read my mind, but rather Gulltorp. Gulltorp is a total beast when it comes to close range combat, and will mess you up with multiple quick strikes in a row. But from a distance, he's just a little guy. Like, sure, he has projectiles and a charge, but they were so easy to avoid. So keeping my distance and making sure he didn't start any close quarter combos was my best bet. Now it's on to Goldilocks, and I was a little bit worried because he has the ability to read brains, basically. But then I realized I lost mine a while ago, so this fight I was actually just a piece of cake. Oh! Most of his attacks were actually really easy. It's just that when he suddenly charges, it sucks. It really was just that one attack that I couldn't dodge. So I had to learn it, which basically boiled down to him hitting me over and over and over and over. I have so many clips. Like, you can kind of tell why Heimdall started to annoy me after a while. In the end, I was finally able to dodge that attack. Oh, finally! But I slipped up and didn't dodge the two that came after. But luckily, Kratos doesn't need health, and instead, like an electric car from hell, can run on pure rage alone. After that, the first stage in Heimdall's right arm were done. So, Heimdall gave himself a new glow stick arm, and I destroyed him on my first try. His moves were basically the same, and I could dodge them all already, so this was just a walk in the park. Thor. Wait, sorry, that's the wrong universe. Can someone change that real quick? That's still the wrong... Yep, whatever. That's close enough, actually. Here, I'm actually going to talk about Thor's second boss fight and not his first, which is a little confusing, but you'll see why later. This was right near the end of the game, so this was as good as my dodging gets, which was still kinda... Combos suck, because every single time I try to dodge in quick succession, I'll just end up rolling, meaning I couldn't avoid most of the quick combos. Also meaning I died a lot. I'd like to say that I had some sort of special strategy here, but I didn't. At all. Both his close and far range were completely destroying me, so I just had to rely on stunning him, whether that be through special attacks or freezing my axe. It's basically the only way that I barely scraped through stage 1, and in stage 2, the projectiles actually got easier for some reason. So my new strategy was to keep my distance and punish him after every projectile. By the time we got to the third phase, I could read him like a book. So very slowly, and often with a lot of mistakes. Garm. We fought a lot of animals, and half animals, so this should have been fine, but man, this was hard. With every swing at that dog, I could feel a little bit of myself die on the inside. Until Garm also killed me on the outside. This fight didn't start off great. For example, he had these consecutive quick bites that often left me nothing more than a chew toy. The projectiles and the charges were not fun either, but all they took was a little bit of practice. The bites, on the other hand, were still messing me up, even in stage 2, where I kinda got stuck because of it. Now, this would have been easier if my reflexes weren't that of a turtle, but I had to make do with what I had. So instead, I had to get all his attacks down through muscle memory, which is why it kinda took a while. However, the bites were really the only thing holding me back. So after that, the fight got a whole lot easier, and I took him down. for about 5 seconds, and then he came back, angrier than ever. Yeah, I would be too if somebody forced my neck shut. Thankfully, this helmet didn't have any more tricks rolled up their furry sleeves, and all their attacks were basically the same, so I was able to stroll through pretty easily. However, while wailing on the dog, my heart shrunk 10 times too small. I had this foreign feeling in my gut. I think it was guilt. So, I stood there for a second and thought maybe we could stop this without violence. So as he sat down on the floor, I waited. I waited for a peaceful outcome, hoping that we didn't have to kill the dog. Then he jumped up, got all of his health back, and squished my skull like a grape. So that wasn't the right strategy. So I went back to violence, and it worked surprisingly well. Whoever told me to kill with kindness has obviously never fought a massive hell dog before. After that though, we gave the dog some free impromptu brain surgery, and now he just loves us. After the God of Thunder and a 50-tall helmet comes the next mighty foe, Bjorn the Bear. Look, I can explain. I promise I don't suck that hard. For this boss, I didn't even allow myself to do the shuffle dodge, which in hindsight was an extremely stupid decision. My only form of avoiding attacks was to run, so this fight can be pretty much summed up to me running in circles for 20 minutes. Poor Mimir, man, he would have puked out his guts if he had any left. I would run, wait for an opening, attack, and guess what? I'd run again. I'd repeat this over and over, and after bear fist fighting a bear, we were done. Dreky. I just rewatched the footage here, and I have no idea on why this king-sized crocodile took longer than the literal God of Thunder. I'm just gonna admit that this was a fat skill issue, especially since he only has like 3 different attacks which he repeats. The projectiles are slow, the AoEs are easy, and the melee attacks have a super long windup. I have no excuse. At least, the fight ended with a wholesome father-son moment where we split its throat together. The double fight was a lot easier because I didn't suck anymore. Or at least, not as much. Nothing here was really notable except for the time I got rezzed just to jump headfirst into a croc's mouth. Vanadus. I was doing the usual, you know, killing anyone who looked even in the general direction of my property, when suddenly, BAM! Bird woman!
Finally, some good fucking food.
I'm not gonna waste your time here. While all of her attacks were fast and hard, insert that's what she said joke here, the only attack that really mattered was the spin. It starts with her charging, and I mean really charging. Here she is breaking the world record dash time just to come and break my spine. That's not the worst part though, because it hits twice in a row. So even if I shuffle away from the first blade, you can sure bet the second one is gonna split one of my kidneys in half. I tried over and over, but with the moves that I had, I just couldn't avoid this attack. So this entire fight just turned into dodging all the other attacks perfectly so I could save up health and tank the spins. And oh boy, did that take a while. But surprisingly, for once, one of my strategies actually worked. Nidhog. The hog is a giant space snake with arms. I think that's the correct Norse terminology. To be honest, this fight actually wasn't too bad. I mean, sure, there was biting. Goddamn biting again. But I could deal with that. Almost all of the attacks were pretty manageable. There was one outlier, of course. This weird belly rock suck. It's just impossible to shuffle past. I just have to sit there and get pelted by rock after rock. This attack would do nearly half my health bar. So again, it was a game of playing every other dodge perfectly. Holy crap, I avoided it. Never mind. Space Snake is constantly out of range for attacks, and that's why this boss fight took so long. It also didn't help that I died right near the end, so I had to do all the same repetitive cycles all over again. After that, the final stage was basically cakewalk. I mean, you'd have to have some serious problems to die here. Which of course I did. Christ and Mist. God, even saying their name is difficult. This fight is the perfect recipe for headaches galore, as there are multiple fast melee attacks, and in the middle of a fight, they can just suddenly go Beyblade mode, and I couldn't do anything about it. The charge attacks, on the other hand, were some of the easiest to predict. And surprisingly, the first stage was pretty easy, partially because I used my res stone on it. Even by my standards, this was extraordinarily stupid. Then, in stage 2, a new double wing attack was introduced, which, you guessed it, I couldn't dodge. So this, in combination with the Beyblade attack, made me realize that I needed to reevaluate my approach. And also what I decide to spend my time on, because this is just stupid. So instead of focusing solely on one boss, I came up with a new strategy. It went something like this. Dodge the first charge, get some hits in, and before they would attack, run away and switch bosses with Boy. This would confuse the AI and they would just kind of stand there as you would attack their friend. This strategy was helpful, but I was still struggling. This phase made me want to die, and it also fulfilled my wish several times over. I was just so confused on why I was struggling so much. And then I realized that I had 14,000 unspent XP points. I know I already used this clip, but I'm just gonna use it again because I think it accurately sums up this situation. Even by my standards, this was extraordinarily stupid. Now, even with the upgrades and the strategizing, I was still dying. Like, a lot. When suddenly, I got a gift from the devs. I don't know if it was Hrist or Mist, but one of them flew behind the back island and then just got stuck there, essentially making the fight a 2v1 and a lot easier. I just assumed that the AI took pity on me for all of the pain it caused. This bug let me get past stage 2, but it didn't last for stage 3. This may surprise you, but I also struggled on phase 3. Although this fight only took 32 minutes, it felt like 32 hours. I was just drained. But I knew that there was one thing that would get me out of the slump. Dog. I still died a ton after that, but it gave me the motivation to keep on going, and it wasn't long before I was done. Yes? Oh! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Thor. Here I'm gonna be talking about Thor's first boss fight, which may be a little bit confusing, but I have a good reason. At this point, I still wasn't even using the shuffling until around 8 minutes into the fight. My original challenge was like no dodging at all, but this fight changed my mind very quickly. So after 8 minutes, I started to use the shuffle, and it was kind of a problem because I had to learn how to dodge while in the middle of a boss fight, which means that I struggled just a little bit. This fight just took a lot of practice, which entails my entrails being torn apart over and over. His charge attacks were easy, but the thunderclap and melee attacks, even towards the end of the fight, were a massive problem. I spent 21 minutes on this stage alone. The next stage went a lot faster because of all the practicing getting smacked around, plus the new hammer strikes were a lot slower and easier to dodge. Stage 3 was a little bit harder though. This would have been easy, but I have a habit of jumping face first into his hammer, and I don't know why. But after I stopped myself from doing that, everything was pretty much easy sailing. Odin. This fight started off just swell. I was getting clowned on by this old man. I got hit over and over. However, I was able to get by without learning any of the moves by just spamming him with all of my special attacks. The next section is pretty much the same, except now he has this AoE attack, and if you can see the color purple, you can dodge it. So of course I still somehow messed it up. There were also some really slow projectiles here which were easy, but the real problem were these lasers. The amount of times I got vaporized is insane. However, his melee attacks were so slow that they're not even worth mentioning. Now, this stage is where I spent a majority of the fight. Now, I'd like to say that it was because there was some special attack that I couldn't dodge, or maybe his health bar was super huge, but really it was just because I was stupid. Several times, I whittled him all the way down to his last silver shield, but no matter what I did, I was just doing chip damage over and over and over, and I wouldn't be able to kill him. And then somebody in chat told me to use the spear, and I had never felt so relieved and so stupid at the same time. Now presenting the boss that took 3 times as long as Odin. Alva. Oh my, this boss. This boss just goes against everything in this challenge. There are so many quick-paced combos that you could really easily dodge roll away from, but with my shimmying, I couldn't do anything. But to be fair, her first phase isn't too bad. The attacks were avoidable if you kept your distance. However, it did take me longer to learn the projectiles, as you basically had to phase through them to avoid them. However, the major problem started to kick in at around the halfway point. Alva goes from throwing projectiles into a super long combo, which killed me basically every time without fail. So, in my usual fashion, I didn't rethink my approach at all, but instead just kept running headfirst into battle. Seriously, it goes on for this like a while. I have to skip so much footage here. Things only really started to get better when I learned that she kept herself totally open during projectile attacks. By the end of this fight, I had been doing it for so long that I knew basically every move inside and out. I did slip up near the end, but luckily my rage kicked in just in time, and that was it. And that's all of the bosses. I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. I apologize for the lack of uploads recently, but I'm trying to get back into it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.